Hey everybody, welcome to the second video in this mix tutorial series. In this video, we're going to be mixing the kick, the bass, and the drums. So in the last episode, I had the project open in front of me, and you would have noticed that it didn't have any organization. So here, what we're looking at is I've got all of the elements grouped up, and I'm going to talk to you about the way I've grouped everything, explain my logic behind it, and then we'll jump in and we're going to start mixing stuff. So to kick it off, the kick and the bass. So I group them together and I color them blue, and that's pretty much all I do with them. Next, I do the drums. I've got a whole bunch of different drums. So I've got a closed hat, a broken beat, another closed hat, so closed two, and then I've got open hat 1, open hat 2, and I group those open hats. So that's how I've got this all set up, and there's no snare in this section. I might chuck a snare in there anyway, just to give you an idea. Next, I've got effects. So this is any sort of psychedelic soundscape or anything that wouldn't be called a lead, but it's like a psychedelic sound. And I group all them together. I've got my risers and my transitions. So this is like cymbals, because they indicate the beginning of the bar. So that's a sort of transition or a timing-based kind of sound. I've got splashes. I've got reverse cymbals. I've got reversed kicks. I've got risers. So that's all sort of things that kind of make you feel like you're sort of sucking up into something or washing out into something and kind of transitioning and, you know, moving through the track. And then finally, excuse me. And then finally I got the leads. So I got a whole bunch of different leads in here. So obviously this track is much larger than this section that I've got. So basically I just cut out a part of the track that's 32 bars long and just used what was in there. So that's why there's no snare in there. I didn't have a snare in this section. And yeah, so let's get started. So the first thing that we're going to look at is the kick and bass. So I'll just turn off all these other channels. And the kick and bass, I approach it as though that is the absolute center of my track, right? So everything revolves around the kick. Even the bass revolves around the kick. And when I'm thinking of psytrance in particular, this also applies to dubstep, drum and bass, you know, maybe not so much house and techno, but it always feels like the kick is stepping on the bass in those genres. I feel like the kick plays and it pushes everything out of the way, and then the bass comes back after the kick is gone. So in order to achieve that, the kick needs to have the largest part of the mix, so to speak. It needs to come through, it needs to punch through, and then the bass will pulse out behind it. And we achieve that by side chaining and doing a bunch of other things. And this bass is actually already side chained. I side chained it in the project, so when I bounced it out, it's already done. But I might apply another side chain just to refine it a bit more. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to pull down the volumes, and I'm going to pull down the volumes of these hats as well. So bear with me a moment. I'm just going to select all of that. 0. Select all of that. So everything is absolutely no volume. Okay, we can't hear a thing. We're going to grab our kick and we're going to pull our kick up in volume, and we're going to set it at a level that will be appropriate to mix to. So if we had that kick at 0 decibel, so maximum volume, and then we started building the mix around it, we're going to not be able to build the mix in a way that allows us to have some sounds that maybe sit a bit higher than the kick, right? And when I say sit higher than the kick, I don't necessarily mean louder than the kick or overtaking the kick, but some things are naturally going to have to be quite loud. And if we're already at 0 decibels and then we start stacking all of these other sounds in on top of it, all of those sounds summed together are going to end up being very loud as a collective. So we need to give ourselves space. We need to give ourselves room to work. So if we set our kick at a particular value, that's going to give us room above that value where when everything's added together, it'll all increase up to that volume as a total. So let's bring the kick up and let's sit it, and we'll have a listen to it. We'll bring it up and we'll set it at maybe -14, and we can tab over to the session view and we can have a look at the meters. We can re-trigger the meters and we can get an idea of how loud the peak value is. So this is showing me the peak. So what I'm going to say is maybe we'll get our kick peaking at -12. So I'm going to bring that up a bit more. All right, so let's go -8. So let's go exactly -8. And that's close enough, let's say. We could bring it down a bit more if we wanted to be very pedantic about it, but that's enough, right? So what we have just done is we have sat our kick in the mix. And if we do our job right for the next few sessions, there is absolutely no reason why we would touch the volume of the kick again, right? We may adjust the kick, but we will not adjust the volume of the kick. Okay, so that is our first job done. The kick is set in the mix and we will not mess with it. Next, we need to bring the bass to an appropriate volume where it's going to match and work with the kick. So what I do is I play the kick and I start bringing up the bass. Okay, there we can hear it. It's too quiet. Right, we're losing maybe a bit of the kick there. Bring it down. Somewhere around there is good. Maybe I'll have a listen on my monitors, because mixing on headphones, whilst maybe you only have headphones, and if you only have headphones, hell yeah, use the headphones. But if you have some studio monitors, that's advantageous. If you have room treatment, like you can see around my room, I've got panels, and I've got behind the panels, I've got stacked acoustic foam. This is going to help improve your acoustic environment. It's going to allow your monitors to give you a more revealing and honest picture of what's actually happening in your mix. So I'm going to just quickly mute my microphone, turn my monitors on, and have a bit of a listen. Okay, I'm going to set my bass at that volume. Okay, so I think that that's an appropriate level balance to the kick right now. As I come back with fresh ears and listen to it again, I'll go straight away, oh no, the bass is too quiet. I'll make an adjustment to that. Okay, so I'm not going to move the kick, I'll move the bass. And I'm only going to do it by a couple of decibel volume levels, because I know that if I'm getting louder than the kick, that is obviously drowning the kick out, and that's not desirable. And if I'm getting too quiet, then I don't have that constant bass vibration support underneath or following the kick. And that's what I need for this mix. So for right now, we're going to say the kick and the bass are done. And I'm going to refrain from EQing either of these right now, because right now I actually don't think they need any EQing. If I listen to that, I'm not noticing anything that pops out to me as wrong or something that could be readjusted. But when it comes to the final steps of the mix, maybe I'll go in there and I'll make some fine adjustments with EQ. Okay, so kick and bass is done. And the reason why I'm not EQing and compressing or anything like this is, first of all, these sounds, they don't need compressed. There's no reason to compress them right now. If I've done a good job and I've made a nice kick, it shouldn't need a compressor. What's the compressor going to do? Same with the bass. I shouldn't need to compress that right now. When we're in the electronic world, all of these samples are the exact same volume. I don't really need to bring the click out more in this kick. I don't need to tame the bass so far. Like, there's nothing I need to adjust with a compressor. And that comes with knowledge of what you're really going to be doing with it, right? So obviously this is a beginner-oriented tutorial, and we as beginners aren't going to be utilizing the effects of compressors all that much. We will use them, but it's more likely that we're going to use them very clinically to fix a sound that's wrong, or over bus or groups, right? So these sounds, they're fine. Let's move on. So we've got closed hats here. We could bring the closed hats up in the mix and start having a listen to how they sit with the kick and bass. So let's listen. Kick and bass is sounding good. Let's bring up these guys. Turn the group on. I'll bring the volume back down. Okay, so it's there, but it's very quiet. Okay, let's have a listen on the... Okay, so at that volume, they're very present and they're in the mix. So I'm going to start bringing up other parts of the drum kit to match that, and we'll slowly build the picture of the drums just with the volume. And then once we got the volumes at the appropriate levels, we'll see whether there's any EQing that needs done on the sounds or anything else like this. Okay, so and I can see that I've already done some stuff here, so I'm just going to delete that. Stuff. Sorry, I've already done this video once and I wasn't very happy with it, so I'm redoing it. I didn't talk enough about what I was doing, so here I am, second attempt, and that's pretty common with my videos these days. It's just like music. I make a video, I leave it for a day or two, I'll rewatch it, and if I can criticize it in any ways, then I'll redo it. Same with the music. If I can criticize the music, then I know that there's something wrong with it, so then I'll make adjustments. And of course, you're always going to think critically of your music, but you'll get to a point where you're like, yeah, that's telling the story that I like. Time to move on from this track. It's not abandoned, it's done. My music projects are always done. It's a good mentality to have. Back to mixing. Let's bring up the second hat here. These are two clips, so we'll... Okay, that should be all right for now. Let's come to the open hat, and I'll check all of this on the monitors once I'm done. We want the first open main hat. Okay, let's bring up the other one. Closing your eyes sometimes can help. Okay, I'm going to come back to this hat and I'm just going to bring it down a bit. Okay, I think that's working all right. And then finally, we'll bring the broken beat up. Broken beat's a bit of a messier sound, so let's see where it fits. And closing your eyes is a very good technique, actually, because you're not looking at the numbers, you're not thinking arbitrarily about what you believe to be true. You're just going with your ears and you're going what feels right. Okay. Pretty happy with that. Maybe... It's hard with this sound because, as you'll notice, the volume's changing with it. It's getting louder at this point. It's quieter a little bit earlier. Is that too loud? Maybe right at the end there it's too loud. So this is a sound that would benefit from compression. So we will compress this sound. So let's just bring it down just a little bit because it does feel like it gets a little bit loud at the end there. All right. So I think that what we're ready to do now is we're ready to have a look at the sounds individually. I think they're well mixed against one another in terms of volume, and that's what we're worried and concerned about right now. We're worried about the volume. Now that we've got the volume fairly well balanced, what we can do is this. So let's play, and let's turn each sound off. Okay, that really, it's gone when you turn it off, obviously, but that's an important test, okay? So if you're not noticing like it's disappearing when you're turning it off, you can't hear it. If it seems overpowering when it's there and then it's like a relief when it's gone, that's a suggestion to you, right? These are great techniques for figuring out whether something's too loud or too quiet in the mix. So, yeah. I'm pretty happy with that. I will compress it, but I'm pretty happy with it. So this one's job is to fill out the back end, right? So it's not an in-your-face percussion element or drum element, but it's there. And it's a sneaky little layer that's going on. Obviously that open hat when it's gone, I don't think that's an overpowering volume. When you take that away, yeah, you're losing part of the bounce to that groove with the hi-hat, right? Cool. Let's have a look at, we can have a look at these sounds using a spectrum, right? So we talked about the spectrum. Let's look at the spectrum. So first of all, does it sound like this sound needs EQ'd? Not really. Do we need to do it? Shall we have a look and have a listen? Right? So let's have a listen. Do we benefit from cutting the lows out of the sound? And didn't Ableton just introduce a channel EQ? Okay, what if we just use the channel EQ? What if we take out anything that could be below? Yeah, okay, let's just high pass. Let's have a listen. That's with it off. I mean on. Off. What about a boost? What about a cut? I feel like it benefits actually from a bit of a cut. What about a boost? It's more controlled, it's more precise. I like it. What else are we going to do to this guy? It doesn't really need anything else, to be honest. We need to delete all of this stuff. Geez, we should not be doing that. Sorry, I should have thought to check that. Does it fall to bits with that? We're going to have to redo the volume of this guy because now it's becoming much louder in the mix. Okay, and I apologize for that. I should not have been mixing this stuff down with anything on the group. The group comes after. So anyway, it didn't cause us too much trouble. Everything else seems all right. Yeah, I'm happy with everything. I think that's okay. So anyway, forget that happened. Let's go ahead and chuck a channel EQ on this guy. So we can see the frequency spectrum. We can hear what's going on. If we cut that, if I loop it around here, going to scoop a bit of the mid out, or the... Again, more controlled. Yeah, I'm liking it. Let's leave that on. We could compress this. So we're going to EQ it. Now we're going to compress it. So I'll grab a compressor, chuck it on here. Now, let's talk about the compressor. We are going to try and level out the volume just a little bit so that when it's right here, it's a little bit more audible. And across time, it's just more even, right? So we'll leave the attack, we'll leave the release. We're going to go a 4:1 ratio, and we'll turn off the makeup, right? So we will listen to the volume loss, and then we will adjust for the volume loss with our ears, because we have to train our ears. So let's pull this down. Now, the compressor won't do anything until you start seeing gain reduction. So right now, this compressor is actually not doing anything. Let's pull it down a bit more. So we're getting a fair bit of gain reduction here. We could bring this up just a little bit. So what it's mainly stepping on is these larger hits, right? And that's stacking on top of a kick. And it's stacking on top of that hat, right? So there's going to be a lot of stuff that ends up stacking on that kick. So it's a good idea to tame it all, right? We tame it all along the way, because all these transients are going to stack up, even though actually that one's a bit off of the grid, isn't it? It's not such a problem, but that hi-hat in particular will be like a bit much. But anyway, so are we losing volume? If we are, it's very minor. Okay, let's have a listen to it all together. Okay, I just boosted it 2 decibels just to bring it up a bit louder. So I'm happy with that. Let's have a look at this closed hat. Channel EQ it. Will we benefit from any of this? Okay. Let's have a look at this open hat. So systematically, 1 second. I'm going to shut that up. And shut that up. Okay, so systematically we're taking the lows out. Taking some of that mid, scooping that mid, cleans the sound up. And there's going to be a lot of other frequency content that comes in through here. There's a much cleaner sounding open hat. And it's the exact same sound, so we'll just apply it to that one. Great. Okay, I think we've got a nicely balanced mix there. Let's go ahead and pan it a bit, right? So we've EQ'd everything whilst it's mono, and now we're going to spread it. So it's good to do that because if your mix is compatible in mono and everything sounds pretty decent and there's not too much clashing with everything, then when you spread it, then there's even more separation between the elements, okay? So What are we going to use to pan? Let's use the stereo tool. Stereo tool to pan. Stereo tool. Okay, so this hat first. Let's go ahead and just place it on everything. We don't need it on the broken beat. We don't need it on the closed hat because we're going to do something special with that one. We'll put it on these open hats. Okay, so first of all, this closed hat, do we want to go left or right with it? Yep, somewhere there's good. Let's have a listen to this. Should we go the same direction that way? Yep. And then this guy. Okay, great. And then we're going to come to auto pan. We're going to chuck the auto pan on the closed hat. So what I just did there, in case I just panned that 18% to the right, and I panned this about 18% to the 15% to the left. So I'm putting them opposite each other, right? So the closed hat, open hat, closed hat, open hat. And then with the closed hats here, these repeating ones, I'm going to spread them. And I'm going to have them playing. So I'm going to increase the amount of an auto pan to around, like, let's say 40%. We'll check whether that's wide enough in a second. We're going to put the timing on, and we're going to put it at 1/8. So when one hi-hat on a 16th note plays there, then the next 16th note will play there, and back and forth, right? So now we got it bouncing between. And if we go extreme, it's pretty hectic. If we go 10%, it's there. It's pretty mild. Let's go. Let's go there. Let's have a listen to it all. And this is already panning. This is a panning sample. So you notice that it starts on the left and it's moving to the right. Moves back to the left. Okay, I'm going to check this mix on my monitors and then we're going to get to the group. Sweet. Sounded good. Let's go ahead and do some more stuff. So we're going to get a compressor and we're going to chuck it on this channel and we're going to use this as a side chain. We're going to take the kick and we're going to lower the threshold. We'll make the ratio infinite because we're crazy like that. Because we'll just be really extreme with it. And we're going to have a listen and we're going to sidechain all of this percussion off the kick. All right, so have a listen and I'll explain myself afterwards. Right, so that's really pumping, isn't it? It's really pushing the percussion out of the way. Great, sounding good. Let's get a glue compressor and we're going to use this glue compressor to attack the transients very quickly. So we're going to put the attack very fast. We're going to put the release very fast. We just want this to react very quickly to transients. I learned this technique from Metal. It does a very cool job of kind of yeah, if you've got good studio monitors, you should be able to hear this nicely. So let's have a go. So I'm aiming for about 3 decibels of gain reduction using these settings, okay? Boom, boom, boom. Sweet. Okay, what else do we want to do to them? We could do some overall compression as well, but that might be okay for now. When we're getting quite close to the end of the mix, we'll come back to this group and we might need to compress it even more. We could actually do some processing on it. So we could grab the drum bus. I didn't talk about this before, but let's have a go with it. It increases the volume heaps, so we just need to be careful with that. Nice. Okay, so I'm being very gentle with that. Low ratio. I'm pulling down the volume so it's not adding volume, and I'm just being very careful with the drive and the crunch. I just want to add a little bit of interesting character to the high frequencies there. Okay, so that's good overall. I'll just group all that together. So I'm pretty happy with how that's sitting. The last thing we need to do is we should put it into a room reverb. So we'll do that very quickly to end the video. So let's go insert return track, reverb, actually drum verb, right? We're going to go reverb, grab that, chuck that on there. 100% dry wet, high quality. Actually, we could even grab like... we could grab one of these presets if we wanted. We could do like a snare room, for example. Let's have a listen to that, see how it goes. We'll add all of the percussion to the mix. So let's have a listen to it. Right, so that's an exaggeration, obviously. So it's just adding a very subtle bit of life to that. Okay, let's have one last listen to it all over and see what we think, and then we will move on if it's sounding all good. Cool. Okay, I'm pretty happy with how that's sounding. As we move through the tutorials, we'll be reviewing what we've done along the way. So if we come back to something and we think, okay, this actually isn't working so well, we'll make adjustments and stuff. But for now, I think that's sounding pretty good. I hope you guys think so at home as well. I'll see you in the next video. Let's do it.